Why is it that some men, successful, loved, respected men, still seek out high-end escorts, even when they're married to women who care deeply about them? This isn't about sex. It's not about boredom. And it's definitely not because their wives aren't enough. In fact, if you actually listen to what these men say without judgment, without assumptions, you start to hear a pattern, a quiet confession that almost never gets spoken out loud. These men aren't chasing bodies, they're chasing a feeling. And the women who understand this best are not always the ones with the longest relationships, but the ones who know how to create an experience where a man feels deeply seen, desired, and free without pressure, without obligation, without emotional debt. What's uncomfortable but incredibly powerful is realizing that many wives don't lose their man's desire because they do something wrong. They lose it because they become blind to one invisible shift that happens over time. Familiarity replaces curiosity. Comfort replaces tension. And love replaces desire, but desire was never meant to disappear. High-end escorts don't have magic tricks. They don't have better bodies, better youth, or better personalities. What they have is clarity. They understand how men want to feel when they're with a woman, and they protect that feeling at all costs. Today, we're going to talk about the number one thing these women understand about men that most wives were never taught to see. And once you see it, you won't unsee it. Men crave emotional permission to want without guilt or shame, and this is one of the most misunderstood dynamics in long-term relationships. Desire doesn't disappear because a man stops wanting. It disappears because wanting starts to feel dangerous, risky, loaded. Over time, many men learn that their desire comes with consequences, pressure to perform, expectations to deliver, accusations of being selfish, or subtle signals that their wanting is inconvenient, childish, or inappropriate. So instead of leaning into it, they begin to suppress it, not because it's gone, but because it no longer feels safe. What high-end escorts understand instinctively is that desire flourishes in an environment where it isn't judged or negotiated. A man is allowed to want without immediately owing something in return. He isn't made to feel greedy for craving closeness, touch, admiration, or intimacy. His desire is met with openness rather than analysis, curiosity rather than criticism. And that alone can reignite something that's been dormant for years. In many marriages, intimacy becomes efficient, scheduled, predictable. Desire is filtered through stress, resentment, and unspoken scorekeeping. When a man reaches for his partner emotionally or physically, he can sense whether that reaching is welcomed or merely tolerated. And tolerance is a quiet killer of attraction. The moment a man feels that his wanting creates tension instead of connection, he starts to retreat inward, not dramatically, slowly, silently, until one day the distance feels normal. The key difference isn't what's happening physically, it's what's happening emotionally. High-end escorts create a space where a man doesn't feel like his desire is inconvenient, excessive, or something he has to apologize for. There is no eye-rolling, no sighing, no subtle message of again. Instead, there's presence, acceptance, a sense that his wanting is natural, even flattering. And when a man feels that, his desire intensifies rather than fades. This doesn't mean saying yes to everything. It doesn't mean sacrificing your boundaries or your needs. Emotional permission isn't about compliance, it's about atmosphere. It's about the way you respond when a man reaches for you. The tone in your voice, the softness or sharpness in your energy. The difference between not now and not you. Men feel that distinction deeply, even if they never articulate it. Over time, many wives unintentionally turn desire into a transaction. If you want closeness, it must lead somewhere. If you initiate, it must be efficient. If you want affection, it must fit into the structure of the day. Desire becomes purposeful instead of playful. And play is where longing lives. When a man feels emotionally free to want you without being corrected, redirected, or shamed, something powerful happens. He starts to associate you with relief instead of resistance, with warmth instead of tension, with openness instead of obligation. And that emotional safety is deeply seductive. Men don't just want to be desired, they want to feel safe desiring, safe to linger, safe to fantasize, safe to want more without being made to feel like they're asking for too much. When you offer that permission, you don't just reignite attraction, you become the place his desire naturally returns to. That's the truth many women were never taught. Desire doesn't need to be demanded or managed. It needs to be welcomed. Desire begins to fade the moment a man stops feeling chosen and starts feeling managed. This shift is subtle, and that's why so many women miss it. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't come from a lack of love. It comes from familiarity quietly replacing intention. Over time, many relationships move from romance into operations. Who's doing what? Who forgot what needs fixing next? And without realizing it, a woman can start relating to a man as a responsibility rather than a desire. High-end escorts understand something crucial here. No man wants to feel like a project. The moment a man feels supervised, corrected, improved, or optimized, his erotic energy shuts down. He may still show up. He may still provide. He may still care. But the part of him that wants that leans forward, that hungers, that feels alive starts to go quiet. Management sounds like reminding, directing, monitoring, adjusting. It sounds like you should. Did you remember? Why don't you ever? Even when those words are justified. Chosen feels entirely different. Chosen sounds like I want you, I love when you come here, I missed you. One speaks to duty. The other speaks to desire. Many wives don't realize that competence is not erotic. A man being useful does not make him feel wanted. When the primary way he feels valued in the relationship is through what he does, paying bills, fixing things, handling logistics, he stops feeling like a lover and starts feeling like staff. And staff don't get fantasized about. What high-end escorts do masterfully is remove performance pressure. A man doesn't feel like he has to prove himself, earn affection, or meet invisible standards before being welcomed. He is desired first, not evaluated first. That alone creates an intoxicating contrast to a life where he constantly feels assessed. Over time, many women unknowingly collapse polarity by overfunctioning. They plan everything, anticipate everything, correct everything. And while this may keep life running smoothly, it drains erotic tension. Desire thrives in space for a man to step forward, initiate, lead, or surprise. When everything is already handled, there's nothing left to reach for. Feeling chosen is deeply emotional for a man. It's the difference between being tolerated and being wanted, between being needed and being desired. A man can feel needed by many people, but being chosen, especially by the woman he loves, touches his identity. And here's the painful truth. Men don't usually pull away because they feel unloved. They pull away because they feel unseen as men. When their presence no longer changes your energy, when their arrival doesn't spark a shift in you, when their touch feels routine instead of responded to, they feel invisible. This doesn't mean going backward or playing helpless. It means becoming intentional again. It means letting a man feel that his presence matters, not because of what he does, but because of who he is to you. It means responding instead of directing, inviting instead of instructing. High-end escorts never confuse closeness with control. They don't take over a man's rhythm. They match it. They allow him to feel like he's choosing, not complying. And that feeling of agency, of being desired without being directed, is deeply arousing. When a man feels chosen, he relaxes. He opens, he invests. When he feels managed, he resists, sometimes quietly, sometimes through withdrawal, sometimes through fantasy elsewhere. Desire doesn't die from time. It dies from correction, control, and emotional micromanagement. And the moment a man feels chosen again, not for his usefulness, but for his essence, you don't need to chase attraction. It comes back on its own. Men want to feel powerful in your eyes, not just competent in life. And this distinction matters far more than most women realize. A man can be respected by his colleagues, admired by his friends, even relied upon by his family, and still feel emotionally starved if the woman he loves no longer reflects his power back to him. Competence is about function. Power is about impact. And desire lives in impact. Over time, many relationships begin to reward reliability instead of presence. A man becomes appreciated for what he handles, what he provides, what he fixes. He's acknowledged for being dependable, responsible, steady. And while those things matter, they don't make him feel felt. They don't make him feel like he moves you. They don't make him feel like his presence changes the emotional temperature of the room. High-end escorts understand this intuitively. They don't admire a man for his resume. They respond to his energy. They let him feel that when he enters the space, something shifts. Their body language changes. Their attention sharpens. Their eyes linger. This isn't fake admiration, it's responsiveness. And responsiveness is what makes a man feel powerful. Many wives see everything a man does, but they stop reacting to it. Familiarity dulls response. Achievement become expected. Effort becomes assumed. And when a man no longer feels that what he does or who he is creates an emotional effect in you, he starts to feel invisible, not unloved. Invisible. Power, for a man, is deeply tied to how he affects you emotionally. Does his voice calm you? Does his touch ground you? Does his desire awaken something in you? When those reactions fade, so does his sense of himself as a man in the relationship. He may still show up, he may still care, but the part of him that feels magnetic begins to wither. This is where many women misunderstand attraction. They think reassurance comes from praise. You're a good husband, you work so hard, I appreciate you. Those statements matter, but they speak to character, not desire. What men crave is the feeling that they still move you, that they still stir something in you that you can't fully control. Power isn't about dominance, it's about effect. It's about knowing that your presence matters beyond practicality. High-end escorts don't lecture men about their strength. They let men feel it through reaction, a pause, a look, a soft intake of breath, a moment of attention that says, I feel you. In long-term relationships, women often become emotionally self-sufficient. They stop leaning in. They stop letting themselves be affected. And while independence is healthy, emotional impermeability is not seductive. When nothing gets through, a man stops trying to reach. This doesn't mean inflating a man's ego or pretending. It means allowing yourself to respond again. Letting appreciation be felt, not just spoken. Letting desire show in your body, your tone, your presence. Men don't need to be told they're powerful. They need to feel it reflected back to them. When a man feels powerful in your eyes, he becomes more generous, more attentive, more alive. He invests not because he's required to, but because he wants to protect that feeling. And that's the key difference. Competence keeps a relationship running. Power keeps it charged. The tragedy is that many women still see their men as capable, but stop seeing them as potent. And when potency disappears from your gaze, it disappears from the relationship. Men don't leave relationships where they feel powerful. They leave relationships where they feel neutral, where their presence no longer creates a ripple, where they feel seen as functional but not felt as men. The moment you allow yourself to be affected again, to respond, to soften, to let his presence land, you restore something primal. And when a man feels powerful in your eyes, he doesn't need validation elsewhere. He already knows exactly who he is with you. Mystery isn't secrecy, it's restraint. And this is where so many women misunderstand what keeps desire alive over time. Mystery doesn't mean hiding parts of yourself, playing games, or being emotionally unavailable. It means knowing when not to get everything at once. It means allowing space for curiosity, anticipation, and longing to exist instead of suffocating them with constant access. High-end escorts understand pacing at a level most long-term partners never think about. They don't rush emotional intimacy. They don't over-explain their feelings. They don't fill every silence with reassurance or information. And because of that, a man's imagination stays engaged. His attention stays active. He leans forward instead of settling back. In many marriages, everything becomes immediately available. Thoughts are shared the second they appear. Feelings are processed out loud in real time. Availability is constant, predictable, and conditional. And while honesty and openness are essential for love, erotic tension requires edges. It requires moments where a man doesn't fully know what you're thinking, how you're feeling, or what you're about to do next. Restraint is powerful because it signals self-possession. When a woman doesn't rush to explain herself, she communicates confidence. When she doesn't chase clarity or reassurance, she communicates trust in her own value. Men find this deeply attractive, not consciously, but instinctively, because it suggests depth, layers, something to discover rather than something already fully consumed. Many women fear restraint because they equate it with distance. They worry that if they don't say everything, show everything, give everything, they'll lose connection. But the opposite is often true. When everything is instantly available, nothing is chased. When nothing is chased, desire goes dormant. Mystery lives in what you don't immediately resolve, in pauses, in unanswered glances, in letting a moment linger instead of explaining it away. High-end escorts never rush emotional closure. They allow interactions to end while energy is still alive. They don't drain moments dry. And that leaves men thinking about them long after they're gone. In long-term relationships, women often overshare not because they want to, but because they feel responsible for maintaining emotional harmony. They feel silence to prevent misunderstanding. They over-communicate to avoid conflict. They reveal everything to prove transparency. And while these instincts come from care, they often eliminate the very tension that fuels attraction. Restraint doesn't mean withholding affection or warmth. It means trusting that not everything needs immediate expression. It means allowing desire to build between moments instead of collapsing it into certainty. When a man doesn't fully know what's coming next, his attention sharpens, his curiosity wakes up. Men are deeply responsive to what feels just slightly out of reach, not unavailable, but not fully settled either. Mystery gives desire somewhere to go. Without it, attraction has no movement. This also applies to availability. When you are always reachable, always ready, always accommodating, you unintentionally communicate that your time, energy, and presence have no friction. High-end escorts understand that desire intensifies when access has rhythm, when connection comes in waves, not floods. Restraint is the ability to leave space without anxiety, to enjoy a moment without trying to define it, to let anticipation do some of the work for you. And when a man senses that you are comfortable in that space that you don't need to fill it, he relaxes into his masculine instinct to pursue. Mystery isn't about being cold, it's about being contained. Knowing yourself well enough that you don't spill everything at once. Trusting that your presence alone is enough. Desire doesn't need constant explanation. It needs room to echo. And when you allow that echo through restraint, rather than secrecy, you give attraction the oxygen it needs to stay alive. That's what so many women lose over time. Not beauty, not love, not effort, but the quiet power of leaving something unsaid and letting a man lean in to find it. Men don't stay attached to a woman because of what she gives them. They stay attached because of who they become when they're with her. This is the deepest truth high-end escorts understand, and is the one most long-term partners completely underestimate. A man can enjoy sex anywhere. He can find attraction in many places, but emotional addiction forms when a woman consistently makes him feel like the best version of himself in her presence. This isn't about praise or flattery. In fact, empty compliments do very little. What matters is experience. How does he feel in his body when he's with you? Does he feel lighter, freer, more confident, more alive? Or does he feel evaluated, constrained, diminished, or invisible? Men may not articulate this consciously, but their nervous system keeps score. High-end escorts are masters of emotional association. When a man is with them, he feels uncomplicated, unburdened. He isn't reminded of who he should be, what he hasn't done, or where he's falling short. Instead, he feels accepted as he is in that moment, desired without conditions, and that feeling becomes intoxicating, not because it's rare, but because it's relieving. Over time, many wives unintentionally reverse this dynamic. They associate closeness with pressure, conversations with correction, intimacy with expectation, love with responsibility. None of this is malicious, it's human. But slowly, a man begins to associate his partner not with expansion, but with contraction. He feels smaller instead of bigger, tired instead of energized, managed instead of magnified. Men are deeply drawn to environments where they feel emotionally successful, where their presence feels welcomed rather than tolerated, where they don't have to perform to earn warmth. High-end escorts understand that a man's ego doesn't need inflating, it needs resting. When a man feels emotionally at ease, his desire bonds naturally. This is why men often say, "She makes me feel like myself," even when they can't explain what that means. It means he feels less guarded, less defended, more spontaneous, more open. He feels permission to exist without judgment. And that permission is rare. Another crucial detail, men bond through emotional contrast. If being with you feels better than being alone, he stays. If being alone feels more peaceful than being with you, he retreats. It's not personal, it's neurological. Men move toward what regulates them and away from what dysregulates them. High-end escorts carefully avoid emotional friction. They don't bring unresolved tension into moments of connection. They don't collapse a man's experience with criticism or emotional weight. They protect the feeling state. And over time, the man associates her with ease, pleasure, and emotional freedom. Many women believe love means sharing everything: stress, frustration, disappointment immediately and fully. But emotional dumping erodes attraction because it changes the way a man feels about himself when he's with you. If every interaction leaves him feeling inadequate, overwhelmed, or wrong, desire erodes, no matter how much love exists. This doesn't mean suppressing your truth. It means understanding timing, tone, and containment. It means recognizing that attraction lives in emotional regulation. When a man feels that he contributes positively to your emotional state, that he can calm you, excite you, ground you, his attachment deepens dramatically. Men don't get addicted to sex. They get addicted to the version of themselves they access through a woman. When he feels more confident around you, he wants more time. When he feels more masculine around you, he invests more. When he feels admired without being pedestalized, he commits more deeply. This is the truth many wives miss. You don't lose a man's desire because you change physically or because time passes. You lose it when he stops feeling emotionally elevated in your presence. The good news? This power is never gone. It's behavioral, not biological. When you shift how a man feels about himself around you, less judged, more accepted, more alive, his attraction doesn't need convincing. It reattaches on its own. Because men may forget what a woman says, they may forget what she does, but they never forget how she makes them feel about who they are when they're with her. If there's one thing I want you to take away from all of this, it's this. The difference between women who are desired for a lifetime and women who are slowly taken for granted is not effort, sacrifice, or love. It's awareness of how men experience desire emotionally, not just physically. Awareness of how attraction lives in feelings, not logic. High-end escorts don't win because they're younger, prettier, or more exciting. They win because they protect how a man feels when he's with them. They create an emotional environment where desire feels safe, unburdened, and alive. And the truth is, you don't need to be anyone else to do this. You simply need to stop accidentally shutting down the very feelings that keep attraction alive. When you allow a man to want without shame, when you make him feel chosen instead of managed, when you let him feel powerful in your eyes, when you reintroduce restraint instead of overexposure, when you make him feel more like himself in your presence, you don't have to chase desire. You become the place it returns to. This isn't about manipulation. It's about alignment, about understanding the emotional language men respond to and choosing to speak it intentionally. So here's my invitation to you. Don't try to change everything at once. Choose one shift, one response, one moment where you pause instead of correct, react instead of manage, allow instead of control. Watch what happens when the emotional temperature changes. If this resonated with you, stay with this channel, because we're not here to shame women or blame relationships. We're here to restore attraction without losing yourself. And if you know another woman who feels confused about why desire faded even though love remained, share this with her. Sometimes all it takes is one truth, seen clearly, to bring everything back to life. Attraction isn't gone. It's just been misunderstood.